Selling is in your DNA. This is so natural, but it's a sale. Every time they cry, that's them learning how to get what they want. And they create enough of a commotion that eventually they get what they need. And then at some point, I don't know when it was, but it all gets shut down and we just decide, selling, I'm not in sales. I don't know how to sell. I hate people that sell. It's just slimy, manipulative, and I want nothing to do with it. But we don't realize we're still doing it every single day because we misunderstand what it is. Selling is exchanging. That's all it is. It's an exchange of something with somebody. So some of you, especially some that just walked in, you sell a product, for example. That's what you do. But it's not your product that you sell that really makes the difference. It's the value that's being exchanged. So exchanges happen everywhere. This conversation, I am selling to you right now, even though I expect you to buy absolutely nothing from me, I am selling to you right now. And what's being exchanged, we'll figure out in a minute, but that's an exchange. Same way when I look at myself in the mirror in the morning and have a conversation, that's a sale too. Everything we do is a sale, especially when I'm selling. But what matters is the value that's being exchanged. So it doesn't really matter what I have to sell if it can't create value. So some of you were here last week when I was speaking at the START event. I have a buddy that bought a razor, like a 4-seater, what are those called? Side-by-side, thank you. And he needed a trailer for it. And I have a trailer that I thought was 7x14 that sits in my backyard, just sits there. Every once in a while I put some garbage on it and then I take it to the dump, but for the most part it just sits there. So I said, this is perfect. I'm gonna sell Oliver my trailer. And then with under one rule that I get to keep it, I can use it when I need it, occasionally. Deal. So Oliver comes over to my house to pick up the trailer. I'm like, you know what, we probably ought to measure this thing just before we do this deal, just to make sure. So I measure it, turns out it's a 6x12. So I get online and I'm like, okay, what are the measurements of this side by side? And all we have to do is cut off about 5 inches of each tire and shorten the wheelbase by about 2 feet, and it's perfect. So it wouldn't have mattered what my price was. It could have been $100, and I would have been able to get him to buy the trailer. Why? Doesn't fit. So there's no value, right? It wouldn't matter. And every once in a while, we find ourselves in that same position where what we offer just doesn't create value. And if you go back to my door knocking days when I was first selling alarms door to door, I took every no as like a personal attack on my character. I expected to sell everybody. And so when they didn't buy from me, I was devastated. But I didn't realize that I just can't create value for some people. They either have an alarm or they have no need for an alarm. And so there's nothing that I can say that can convince them to buy from me. So I should just stop trying. But I didn't understand that. I couldn't create value. Over the course of my career, I figured, okay, well, if I just get more aggressive or work harder or just become that much better at communicating, then maybe I can persuade them to buy. But it still didn't matter because this equation right here was what mattered. I need to be able to create value that's greater than the cost that I'm expecting in return. And if I can't create that value, then it doesn't matter. There's no exchange. Nothing good is going to happen. So I coach a lot of sales reps, especially in the summertime when they're out selling doors or selling alarms or pest control or whatever they're selling. And what's really interesting is a lot of times I get a call when they're in a rut and they're struggling. They haven't sold in several days. And inevitably, the conversation starts with what changed? Because you've been selling, you've been doing really well. Did you just all of a sudden lose all of your value? Did you just all of a sudden forget how to sell? And what's really interesting, a lot of times they realize that they kind of got focused on what they were doing, how much money they were making, or their own progress or success, and not the value that they were creating for the customer. So if you ever want to bust a sales slump, or if you feel like your sales aren't where you want them to be, take a quick look at yourself and say, am I focusing more on how much I'm making and getting deals closed, or in being insanely valuable to the people that I'm selling to? What am I doing to amplify the value that's being created? If you're a dentist, for example, What am I doing to be the best option that they have? The cost in that scenario is the alternative. Who else is out there that's my competition? How do I make sure that I'm more valuable than them? The key is you need to know your value. So let's kind of step outside of the sales conversation for a second and say, personally speaking, like as a student, for example, you have a value there too, right? Or as a father, I'll give you a story here. This is like several weeks ago, and I'm hanging out with my son. I'm upstairs in his room talking to him. He's devastated right now. He's kind of having a meltdown. And I was trying to figure out what was wrong. And he's the second oldest, and so he kind of felt like he was being abandoned. And I said, what would matter? Like, what would make you feel like you were the king, like the best, like the pride, like what would make you feel special? And he said, Dad, I just want to go camping. Just you and me. I just want to go camping. I said, you know what? We're going camping. So I went in my garage, I found my tent, found my 2 sleeping bags. It was like 98 degrees outside. And we went up to Snow Canyon and we spent a night together camping. And he looked over at me at one point. We were having Cafe Rio up on the top of one of the little bluffs. And he looks over and he's like, Dad, I'm happy. And it just like melted me. And it was so simple, so simple. Like the value of, as a father, was time. It was camping. He just wanted to go camping. And that was how I could communicate and create more value as a father. So pick your role, whatever role that is, a place where you really want to succeed or to thrive or do better. And ask yourself this question first. What makes me valuable in that thing? So in sales, it's moving deals, it's getting deals closed. In school, it's getting straight A's and it's making the most out of my education. In a career, it's being valuable to my employer. So pick whatever that is and ask yourself, do you know what makes you insanely valuable? Have you got it? It's really simple. If you want more success in your life, more happiness or more income or a more stable career, create more value. If you want a better outlook and a better opportunity, create more value than what's expected of you, or create so much value that your space can no longer contain you. If you're in a job, a corporate, an environment, and I've tested this and I've proven this. If you are one of, let's say, 10 people that are hired to do a similar thing, and you go out there and you work 5 times as hard as everybody else, and you plug in, you invest, you just give it everything you've got, your performance, your production is going to be greater inevitably, right? What happens to the all-star on a sales team? Anybody in sales? What happens to that person? Anybody that works with me at Printer Logic, where I spend most of my time, understands that when they do really well, they work really hard and they crush it, that usually means they get plucked over and put on another team. So in a corporate environment where you have multiple people doing the same things, you want to create so much value that you stand above the competition. And mark my words, when you do that, you will get promoted, you will get repositioned, you will get paid more money, you will get opportunities. Exchanges and value will come to you because you created more value than what was expected of you. Does that make sense? I find the standard, what everybody else is doing, and then I make sure that I stand just a head above everybody else, always. And if you think about it, if you're looking out at a sea of people at a concert, as soon as one person pops up on the shoulders of somebody else, that's all you see. They stick out like a sore thumb. So the same principle applies. This is value. So if there's one thing that you take from today, it's know your value. And whatever role you want to focus on, know your value and figure out exactly what you can do to scale, create more value. If you want better results, create more value.